privilege today of having one of those people next to me. This is my friend Phil Bailey. And when I came to St. Christopher's Church in Lithicum, Phil was my senior warden. He and Glenda, his wife, have worked with the Winter Relief Shelter Program for over 30 years. Phil and Glenda were the founders, one of the pillars of that group who got that movement going. And then one day, Phil and I were in my office and had a conversation, and Phil said, I have a dream about starting a day shelter for people. They don't have anywhere to go, and they need help, and they need support. And so Phil and I put our heads together, and with the help of a lot of people in the community, that dream became a reality. And the day shelter has now been open for 13 years. And there's a clinic that is affiliated with that program. And we work together. The church in Lithicum, St. Christopher's, bought a house. And now there are 8 women who live in the house. It's the only low-income housing that's, at least it was at the time, for women. Most everything I learn about helping people who don't have food and shelter, I learned from being with those people and from my mentor, Phil. Working with people who don't have shelter and food are a different population than we are. Not better, not worse, but their lives have taken twists and turns that we couldn't even start to imagine why that is or how that came to be. So I asked Phil if he would spend just a few minutes this morning sharing with us his life experience about how to be supportive and help people who are in need of food and shelter. Our community is beginning on this journey, and I want that to be a successful experience of ministry for us and for the people that we're trying to serve. And if anybody knows how to help us do that, it's my friend Phil.
She's something else. She really is. Winter Relief it started out as a ministry of churches combining, becoming a shelter, a homeless shelter for 1 week at a time, going in under crofts and so forth, and fellowship halls. And it seemed like a great idea, because we all have a Christian duty to serve people. And I lived that Christian duty for about 3 years until one Christmas Eve, the shelter was at St. Christopher's. And earlier in the week when they first came, they come on Monday and leave, Monday evening, leave the following Monday. And I don't remember when Christmas Eve came in there. I think like a Thursday or Friday, whatever it was. Anyway, I brought a Christmas tree in, and I said, you guys decorated and so forth. And by the time Christmas Eve came, the tree still hadn't been decorated, nothing had been done. And I was sitting there and I'm wondering about this. And you could literally cut the depression with a knife, you just felt it. And I'm sitting there and I'm wondering, what's going on? And then suddenly in the next room, the children's choir started practicing for the Christmas pageant. And 3 years of duty just kind of slapped me in the head and said, you got this all wrong. Because look at the dichotomy of what's going on. The kids in the next room planning, Christmas, they're joyful and all this kind of stuff. And here are these men who are homeless. They didn't plan to be homeless. that wasn't one of their life goals, was to be spending Christmas Eve homeless in a church. Something went wrong. And that made me realize that I didn't have a clue what went wrong. And that doing this out of duty was exactly what God doesn't want us to do. What he wants us to do is do it out of love. And to get that love, what I discovered was you have to spend the time to get the knowledge, to understand why people are in this group. And once you have that knowledge, you can dispel the prejudices, the preconceived notions, the very easy and convenient ways to just dismiss people because they have misled their lives. Okay? You all are going on a mission which I guarantee you has the potential to change your lives if you just open up to understanding people. And you know, in today's gospel, when it says, when the young man was talking to God and he was explaining all the things he did, and God looked at him with love, because he knew the young man was missing something, you know. Well, let's work to live in love and to look at people with love as we start to understand what we're missing about our understanding. You know, people who become homeless for many different reasons. You know, the stage one is the ones that we can readily identify with. You know, the husband died, and the wife was a stay-at-home mom, and she really didn't have a career. And now all of a sudden, she has to be the breadwinner. She has to provide daycare because she can no longer stay home and watch the children. So now she has to do daycare, which is very expensive and all that. And so she winds up with a problem, and she's in desperate need of help. And we can really identify with that, you know, and we do it. That's the easy part. And unfortunately, that's the minor part. You know, social issues are varied and wide and very complex. So you look at the person who might have a history of addiction, mental illness, living a life that is probably 180 degrees different than yours. Okay, you're a success because you did this. You led a successful life. They led an unsuccessful life. Well, look at them with love and understand what might have happened. And it's probably generational. All kinds of things. Anyway, I think we're going to talk about some of that, but just have an open mind and an open heart and understand, try and learn. There are patterns, and it's easy to see. And you just learn and understand that the road is a very crooked and complicated road, and I don't know what else to say.
Can you talk to us a little bit about some of the patterns that you see people that happen, some of the patterns that, especially some of the generational patterns? Can you give us a few ideas about that?
Sure. In my experience, most people who are in trouble do it generationally. Okay. Unless somebody comes into, you know, we're in this time of addiction, and it's an epidemic. So you kind of have to work around that. There are some people who are now in problems because they have become addicted. And so that's part of it. The other side is that they come from generations of need, that there are life skills that people don't know. They don't know it because their mother didn't know it or their father didn't know it. It didn't teach them those life skills. How to balance a checkbook, how to do a budget, you know, how to determine the difference between a need and a want, okay? They didn't learn it, they weren't taught it, and there's a very good chance that that mother wasn't taught it. So it goes generationally, right? So a child lives what they learn. So if they're taught to live in this non-responsible way, it's going to continue until hopefully something happens. They hit the bottom, or they hit whatever it is, and they run into people like you all who can offer them assistance to understand the life, the skills that they need. Okay, and I would tell you that the main thing is you can't help by enabling. Okay, do not enable, but at the same time, don't criticize. Don't make judgments, because I don't know, but I'm 75 years of age and I'm still learning. Okay, and at 75, I don't make new mistakes anymore. Sadly, I may be the same mistakes I made 50, 60 years ago. Okay, I've perfected those mistakes.
You have.
Yes, I have. Yes.
One of the things I think that might be helpful is to talk a little bit about the fact that we're not here to fix people. That is not our job. Our job isn't to fix people. Our job is to encourage people to make good choices. Our job is to help people get the skills and the resources that they need so that they can help themselves. Do you want to talk about the people pulling themselves up by the bootstraps that aren't wearing any shoes?
Yeah, we've all said, pull yourself up by the bootstraps, okay? But these people don't have shoes. And I mean metaphorically, they don't have shoes. They're not walking around with bare feet, but they don't have the skills. You know what I found over the years? I think it's more than skills. What they don't have is the hope. It's hope that's missing. That if somebody stops drinking, it's because a little door opens and says, maybe I can do this. Maybe I can do this. And if they start working on it, they generally hopefully, they start to build this belief that, yeah, with God's help or with whatever, I can do this. And they get the hope. You cannot fix anybody. They have to fix themselves. There's no cure. You're fixed. Well, you would need 2 steps, but you can't.
He hasn't been there long and he's got your nails, Will. They can't be fixed. You can't fix them. You can hurt them by trying to fix them. Hold them responsible, okay? But put goals for people. Never expectations. Don't set your expectations on anybody else, because you're setting them up to fail, okay? Help them develop goals, and if they fall short of the goals, keep pushing them lovingly. Look at them with love and say, we can do this. What did you do? How come you didn't do it? Okay? And just work and realize that it's no different than a child. When you get in these situations, if it's addiction or it's a mental illness kind of thing, maturity stops. In addiction, the substance abuse, maturity stops. I tell you, it's sad to see there are people 11 and 12 and 13 years of age becoming addicted, okay? And now they're age 30 and you're trying to work with them. Emotionally, you're working with a 12-year-old. When they become addicted, that maturation process stops. And you're not going to get it overnight. There are all kinds of different addictions too. There's drug addiction, there's alcohol addiction. You can be addicted to your own circumstances. And if you don't know how to get out of a situation, if you don't have hope to get out of a situation, It's if you can't imagine it, you can't obtain it. So our ministry here in working with people who have lost hope is to continue, is to give them some hope. To let them know that God loves them, that we love them, that we're here to help them and to coach them. The circumstances that we're in with the family right now, it didn't happen overnight. It happened over a series of months and years. And we're not going to be able to change their circumstances overnight. It's going to take us weeks and possibly months to help them to get it to be a better place. So we need to make sure that our expectations are realistic for us and that the goals that we help them set are realistic for them. And for us not to get frustrated or upset if they don't have the ability to reach the goal right away. It's a sprint. It's a marathon, not a sprint. And so I want us not to set ourselves up for failure, but to set ourselves up for success. And therefore, I've spoken with Journey Home, and they're considering taking Brandy and Richard and their family into the Journey Home program before the building is built. And they never considered doing this before. So that means that we'll have their help and their resources and some training for all of us so that they can provide them with the coaching and the resources that they need. And that'll help their Journey Home program begin so they can start their process of working with these people, knowing that our church will help and support them. And that means we're doing it as a community, not just our own church. So I think we're really headed in the same way, and I want to thank all of you. Many of you have given money for them to stay in the motel. Many of you have looked for clothing for the kids, have been working with the food bank to get them the food that they need. We need to make sure that we communicate together and do the best that we can to be supportive of them, knowing that ministry is really messy. Yes. If you really enter into God's work, it's messy and it's complicated. And it can be confusing and frustrating. But the good news is that God is in the middle of that, and that together we can do this. So, my brother Phil, thank you for your ministry for all these years. Thank you for coming here today and sharing your wisdom with us. Let us continue to support each other and work together, because we really are literally trying to be the body of Christ in the world, which is exactly what God is calling us to do. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you.